And we're back. So this is being recorded. The organization involved in this wanted to keep it for prosperity's sake. I guess if there are any questions, come back and visit it, whatever it may be. But that's all good. So I'm going to walk you through what our agenda is. And as I looked at it myself, I thought it might look a little overwhelming, but it isn't. I just wanted to make sure I had my bullet points in front of me. I'll give a brief overview of my background, who I am. A little bit of an icebreaker. When I say icebreaker, I just want to get a little sense from the group as to what you're involved in, what your interest is in marketing. It might help me a little bit to sort of steer the conversation. Talk a little bit about market research as it relates to your offering, whether it be a product or a service or whatever it may be. We'll talk about product. We'll talk about competition. We'll talk about pricing, promotion, path to market. For those of you that have taken a marketing course, they often talk about the 4 P's, product, price, promotion, and place. Place is really, I think path to market is more of a better description. So that's the way I term it. Also a self-assessment, and that's not an assessment of you. It's an assessment of your business. And it's to encourage you to be looking at strengths and weaknesses, but we'll spend a little bit of time on that. Mapping, and I'm not even sure that's the right word. I came up with it, but it's I'll explain to you what I mean by that. And then just a brief overview of bringing it all together into a marketing plan, a working document for you. And then a few other resources that I found online that I thought would be good for you to have and access if you're looking for additional depth as it relates to the subject matter. And again, please feel free to jump in at any point with questions or anything you might have. So about me, I live in Rhode Island, and went to school in Rhode Island and got my MBA at a school up in Albany, Sage Graduate School. From a career standpoint, I've always been in sales and marketing, most of it in more of an industrial arena. It's interesting how we end up in what we end up in. But I've been in the copper industry for a number of years, for most of my career. And I'm selling to manufacturers of automobiles and electronic products and just so many products that use copper. But my career has been heavily on the sales side of it. And then the last 30 years have been on the marketing management, sales management, and the last 15 years, vice president of sales and marketing. So quite a depth of experience on the sales and marketing side of it. Excuse me. Certainly what you're doing is a little bit of a turn from that. But one thing I've learned from being involved with many people, many companies, many products, the fundamentals are the same. So we'll be in a good position to jump right in and dive in deep on this. And then today I'm at the latter part of my business career, and we'll be winding down sometime over the next 3 years. At the same time, I'm winding up a new career. I've been involved in life coaching. I've built a business in life coaching. So that's been very, very exciting. And during my business career, I always felt I would very much like to have an opportunity to contribute to people's lives, and this has been a great entree for me into that, and also working with Bristol Community College on these programs, which I love doing. Icebreaker questions. Again, I just want to get a little bit of a sense of where you're coming from. Are any of you business owners or looking to start your own business? You could share your thoughts on that.
Hi, this is Tan Nugent. Yes, I am. My husband and I have been thinking about to open it's like convenience store in the near future.
Okay,
and
good.
I'm kind of, it's just very, very difficult to think how and where to start. So I found this course very helpful for me, I believe. So I hope that after I finish this course, I may apply the skill and the technique to my future plan for the convenience store.
Excellent. Okay, good. Thank you for sharing that. How about others? Anybody else owning or looking to own their own business, and that's one of the reasons that they're here?
I do have a side business selling my art.
Okay, good. And what paintings?
I do pencil portraits, custom pencil portraits.
Oh, excellent. Okay. Okay, good. Thanks for sharing that.
I'm also an artist just starting out with sales and needing to learn about marketing.
Okay, great. And what type of artist, if I may ask?
I do watercolor paintings and also some fiber artwork.
Excellent. Thank you for sharing that. And anyone else?
Yeah, I own my own business for quite some time, and it's been primarily referral based, and that's been great. However, I'm looking to expand out a little bit more, and I have a couple of other different business interests that I'd like to kind of investigate. So looking to just learn as much as I can about anything I don't know. It's just you don't know what you don't know. So I figured it's a great opportunity to kind of get to the bottom of things in that department.
Excellent. And is it a tangible product?
No, I have a motion graphics and post-production studio that I run. And then I have kind of passion projects that I do that are not anywhere related whatsoever in that industry. So I'm looking to branch out into some other things. And I'm just thinking of different ways to really target the messaging and the, finding the customers to sell to.
Great. Thank you for that. And any others? So, and feel free to share along the way. So with that, well, let me keep going here. And these next questions may already have been answered. Each of you gave a little bit of an overview as to what you're looking to market. So let me ask this question. And what comes to mind when you think of marketing? Sort of an abstract question, but anyone have a response on that?
Getting the right product into the right mind and eventually hands.
Good. Any other, when you hear the word marketing, what first comes to your mind?
Items that you want to buy and to sell.
Say it again, please.
Items that you want to buy and sell.
Okay, good. it's a funny thing about the word marketing because it has so many components to it. And it's interesting to hear which aspects of it people think of first. Anyone else want to share on that one? You know, that marketing is the marriage of product and marketplace, sort of as was described on the initial response. It's bringing that product to the marketplace, to the consumer, and all that's involved in and getting it to them. And how about, and a couple of you did comment on it, how about the expectations from tonight's class? Is there anything other than an overview? And I'll try to tie it to the diversity of businesses you're involved in. But is there anything else I should know before we start moving forward as to what you're looking forward to tonight? Okay. So, like with all things, let's get started. Let's jump in. Or as it was said to me once, as an older guy was waiting for his wife to finish a conversation, he said, "We can't get there if we don't go." So let's go. And we'll start off with market study. Now, whichever arena you're in, whether it be arts that you're creating, artistic designs, artistic products, whether it be the motion picture, the convenience store, any product or service, any offering, a good way to start is to try to do some type of market study, and don't let that term intimidate you. Let me give a little bit of an overview as to what I'm referring to. Some of you have probably heard the term focus groups, and in their purest form, focus groups are run by PR firms and marketing firms, and they can get pretty sophisticated. But what I'm talking about is gathering a group of individuals that you believe would be a candidate for your product, service, etc. In other words, if trying to bring together 5 or 6 people who, with the for instance, the art products, a group that you would consider to be your target audience. Now, and you're going to have to draw some conclusions there, but perhaps people that have a creative interest, and perhaps them across different genders and age groups and income groups and that type of thing. And you bring them together at a coffee shop or whatever that might be for the purposes of trying to get an understanding around the various aspects of marketing. So again, the focus group is a term that's used, and one way you could approach it, and then I'll go over some others, is to gather the group, and before you do, have some clear objectives. Think about which aspects you want to focus on, and try to keep each one fairly limited. In other words, you can do it again, but the first time around, what are the key aspects you want to focus on? Maybe you're still involved in your product development. Maybe you've got your product, but you just don't have any sense of the price points as it relates to the product. Maybe you've got both of those and you just don't know how to take it to market. So one, identify your clear objectives going into it. Two, this sort of goes back to what I was saying a couple of minutes ago, is to recruit the right people. So again, think about those that are candidates to buy your product or service. If it's a store, maybe it's a very much a cross section of individuals, and maybe it's young adults up to older adults, and bring in a cross section and run questions by them relative to your product or service. So think about, again, the right distribution of people for your focus group. Give it a test run. Bring a family member or two or a friend or two together, give it a test run. You'll feel more comfortable going into it, and you'll have a better idea of how to run it and the aspects of it that you want to walk away with. Create a happy atmosphere. This isn't serious stuff. Matter of fact, it can be fun stuff. And, so again, bring the individual together, do it in an environment that is non-threatening and enjoyable and has some fun with it. We'll come back to this in different forms, but most of all, again, be thinking about the questions you want to ask to steer you in the initial aspects that you want to gain clarity on toward your product or service you're offering. Keep control of the session. I mean, these are sort of fundamentals of it's interesting how in these types of things, and you can just picture it in a group setting period, how if you allow it to start to get away, somehow it's awfully difficult to get it back. So, sort of setting some ground rules at the beginning and while having fun, also keeping control of it. One thing that's important if you're thinking about a focus group to gather information is to avoid leading questions. I remember one time I asked a question of someone in a business meeting, and the one person sitting there said to me, "You're asking the question like a pollster that knows what answer they want." And I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "Well, with the way you ask the question, it's almost like they have to answer it this way, which is leading to the answer that you want." So be thinking about the questions and how you ask them as to not immediately lead to the answer you want. Bring in a colleague to be an assistant moderator. A lot's going to be going on fast. So that might be a good deal. And sort of the same thing. Send the people away feeling positive about their experience. You may choose to pick 2 or 3 of them or all of them, or to do it again at some point in your business. But just keep this practice in mind. It's something that can really help you on all the other things we're about to talk about. So we're starting with research. The second area, as you are developing, maybe for instance, with the creative products, I want to get a sense is the best place to be promoting this, or I should say selling this. Where is this an online product? Is this a product that I should go to art shows? Is this a product that, developing relatively brief surveys, 5 questions. Now, Google's got easy, if you go to Google, it offers a survey tool that's so easy to develop now. And you can, be building up a database of people and get feedback on same way you did with the focus group, doing the same type of thing with the surveys. Here are the 5 things that's very important for me to know right now as I'm building this business, considering building the business, and doing a mass emailing with that survey to try to get some sense as to what the marketplace is saying about your product, again, from any number of areas, all the ones we talked about and we'll visit here going forward. Interviews, as opposed to a focus group, there may be individuals in, for instance, the motion graphics business, any one of these businesses that you feel that having the perspective of these individuals in that community of the business is important. So again, different from a survey, different from bringing everybody together, doing individual interviews. And also, as you're talking to friends and acquaintances, be bouncing questions off them, especially if your product or offering is something that can appeal to, a wider group. For instance, the convenience store. If you're giving thought to where, will it be located? If you're giving thought to how it will be laid out, if you're giving thought to, maybe there's a general consistency to what's in a convenience store, but, be asking people those questions. And then the next question is, so, okay, I've gathered this information. What do I do with it? So now we're going to start talking about the development of your product itself. And, the words I put together were product first, and there's a reason why I did. Product, again, marketers talk about the 4 Ps: product, price, promotion, place. Product is first and foremost. If you have a good product, you got a shot at succeeding. You can have the other 3 Ps and not have done perfectly and not have a good product, and you won't succeed. So whatever it is, again, any of the offerings that all of you have, the proper development of the product, the offering is always going to be first and foremost. So let's spend a few minutes talking about the product development process. And this is a really important question. In developing what you're marketing, did you listen to the marketplace or did you follow your own instincts? Because the vast majority of products that are brought to the market are ideas people have. And the vast number of those products fail because they were an individual's idea without a tie to what is the marketplace wanting. So I asked the question, did you listen to the marketplace or did you follow your own instincts? Certainly your own instincts can play a large role as you're listening to the marketplace. But keep that in mind, and we'll touch on that a little bit more too. Just some bullets, some things to think about as you're developing your business. Is there a need for your product? Well, it's difficult to develop products where there's a pure need. When you can, you've got a winner, as long as you carry out all the other areas. But need is a powerful word. But if that should always be the focus. What's the need? More likely, is there a want? Most of what we're marketing, or a lot of what we're marketing, are wants. Whether it be creative products, maybe convenience store, there would be a need and there would be a want. But always trying to gear towards the consumers. I don't want to use the dependence, sounds negative, but the consumer's need, and then secondarily, what is their want? And we'll touch on that a little bit here too. Is it solving a problem? This sort of goes back to the need again. To the degree that you can solve a problem, and I don't know that we have any of those in this, in what our group today is offering, but something for consideration. Is it an attention getter? And I do think this applies to some of the businesses we're looking at today. What is it an attention getter? And we'll talk about that more as it relates to promotion. Another angle, does it make people feel comfortable? Or does it make them feel better about themselves? All things to consider as we're developing products and as we consider the marketplace and what their interests are and what their needs are. So product is always first. So as you're thinking about, again, marketing is a pretty broad umbrella, but first and foremost, product is number one. So again, remember, the market determines reality. We can make great products, but if there's no need or want for it, they're a great product we made that don't sell. And it's not always clear, of course, but the market determines the reality. We just think we know. And that's the problem with, we as marketers, sometimes we think we know the marketplace. And I can't tell you how many times I made assumptions. And then when I started to talk to the marketplace, I realized, Bill, you don't represent the marketplace. You might be one small piece of it, but it's very important that you get a larger sense and understand where the thrust is as far as the opinion of the marketplace. So many a marketer has failed never learning this lesson. Just something to keep in mind as you're developing your offering. So this is really important. And again, it's always important, depending on the nature of the offering. Is it a commodity? If it's a commodity, it's harder to differentiate yourself from the competition. But it's important to know who is it you're competing with and what are their strengths and weaknesses. No matter what we're marketing, no matter what we're involved in on a day-to-day basis, whether we have others that and let me back up, as it relates to business, etc. There are people we're competing with, and just as important it is to know yourself, it's just as important to know your competitors. What are they good at? What are they weak at? And document it, and list each of your competitors' strengths and weaknesses, because that's going to come into play in your developing your own strategy on the 4 Ps and other areas, which I'll touch on. The how are they pricing is a really interesting one. And, again, I'll sort of tie in it to who we have today. I think on the convenience store, perhaps there's more of a open knowledge of what price points are. There might be another one mile through down the street and everyone sort of prices the same way, sort of like gasoline, or maybe not. But across the wider spectrum of products and services, et cetera, how we price can drive what the perception is of our product. And what I mean by that is we can have the same product. Let's pick a laptop. and decide that we're going to price it as a $2,500 laptop or a $700 laptop. Now, ultimately, the marketplace has price points that they can afford, but staying with perception, there's going to be an immediate perception that the more expensive product is the better product. And that's why we got to be so careful as consumers. And how you position yourself as it relates to price is a very delicate and sensitive process. Again, this is going to come from you talking to your marketplace, whether it be surveys, whether it be interviews, whether it be focus groups. You're going to gain a sense on where your price points should be, but never forget that how you price will also lend towards creating the perception of that product. But ultimately, again, your marketplace is going to have certain price points where they walk away and certain price points where they buy, and understanding that you're going to learn over time. So how do you differentiate yourself? That, of course, it's if we were talking one product group, it would be easier to focus on it. But that's where all aspects of marketing come into play. Again, whether it's price, whether it's promotion, whether it's the path to the market, et cetera. But ultimately, we're always, as business people and as marketers, looking to differentiate. And you'll get some sense of that once you do strengths and weaknesses of each of your competitors. And also, and we'll spend time on this before we finish, doing the same thing for our own business. And that'll be very important, that self-critique of our own business. Any questions so far? That allowed me to get a drink of water. That was a commercial break. Okay. So again, as it relates to pricing, I won't keep saying that it depends on the product, the market, et cetera. But it's not only going to be where are you pricing each item, but it's also going to be whether you establish price tiers. You may have tiers based on the cost related to cost is time is money. It may be the time it took you to develop the product may drive some of your pricing strategy. Usually pricing is driven by the marketplace. Consider the competition. How are they paying? What are they charging? And then ultimately, and these are important words, but they're hard to get a handle on, what is your marketplace willing to pay? And that's, again, at what point do they say, okay, this, I am willing to pay that much for this offering. And getting your hands around that can be hard. Generally, it's not a specific number, it's a range. But, and again, it's going to go back to your research too, because very much so, because you're going to be spending time in the initial stages getting a sense as to what the individual segments of your customer base are willing to pay for different aspects of what you're offering. And this touches back on what I mentioned before. How does each price point reflect on your product? I've always found it to be absolutely fascinating. And if I had my watch here where I'm keeping track of time, if I told you, I'll sell you this for $2, you'd say I don't want a cheap watch. And if I told you I'd sell it to you for $50, you'd look long and hard at it and say, well, that must be an awfully good watch. I could use a good watch. So again, keep that in mind that, price can drive perception, and it doesn't necessarily mean negative perception. That high price doesn't necessarily mean negative, and the other way around as well. And how about promotion? It's how do we make the market, sort of like the comment before, putting the right product into the right hands, and how do you make those hands aware of what you're offering, and whether you're it varies dramatically by the type of product you're marketing. Is it a consumer product? Is it an industrial product? Is it a business to business? Is it but with each of the different offerings, how you look at promotion will go a long way in the depth of sales, speed of sales, longevity of sales. And I want to go back to, again, talk to your customers, talk to those that you're interviewing in the early stages. Understand from your marketplace where they hang out. Now, I don't mean what nightclub do they go to, but where do they spend their time? What do they look at? Where do they go? I think people today all assume that the place to go is Facebook. Well, I think certain aspects of our demographics don't even look at Facebook anymore, and that's sort of an example that make sure you know where your marketplace is hanging out, as I use the term. Website development. For my life coaching business, I use Squarespace, and I found it to be just a great tool. I didn't spend time with all the others, but Squarespace had been recommended to me, and I found it to be very user-friendly, enhancing, adjusting, etc. Was all, there's a learning curve to everything. But again, it's amazing what a website can do. There was one company in one of the markets I was selling into, and I don't know how much they spent on their website, but they created the perception that they were an enormous market leader. And I ultimately decided they were a potential customer too. I set up an appointment to go there, and it was the complete opposite. Not that they weren't a good company, but they had put the money into their website, and they weren't deceiving anyone. They just created a perception of something far more vast than they are. The whole point being, your website can be a wonderful tool. Ultimately, we're going to want to spend time on how do we get people to your website. But for those of you that are the creative type, I think you'll also find some satisfaction in just the process of building it, because it's certainly a creative process. But choose a website tool, even if it isn't a primary sales tool. Being able to say to an individual, please visit my website. It says something about, you, about your company, that, you put the resources into building a site that, not only can they go to it and see it and get a sense for all that you are, but it also just adds a level of legitimacy, and it's it's an opportunity without you having to be there for your website to tell the story. So there were a few different options. Media platforms, again, Facebook may not be what it used to be, but it's still a place that you can send people to learn more about you, learn more about your offering. I know Instagram has all sorts of different fingers to it. People marketing on Instagram, that's become a dynamic tool. LinkedIn's a little more, probably a little more business oriented, corporation type oriented. But there are a diversity of social media platforms out there. And what I would suggest again is talk to your marketplace. Where are they hanging out? Where do they go? And so what you're doing there is you're getting a sense from each of the demographics within that marketplace that you're selling to. You're getting a sense as to what are people reading, where are they going when they pop open their laptop, or where are they going on a Sunday morning? What are people doing? Where are they hanging out? And depending on your product, that may very well be a telltale as to where you want to be marketing. Email marketing, again, I think Constant Contacts is more of a business. It's very popular in the the business side of it, and I think there are some more that are more consumer oriented. For instance, like MailChimp, and there are others. But build your email database. You can also buy databases. I mean, for instance, if you're living in southeastern Massachusetts, and you establish that your potential customers read, everyone goes to this site for something, and so you can actually go to that firm that the site's going to, and you can actually buy a mailing list. I mean, you won't get the names of the people, but the company will email it for you, and obviously you would pay for it. But and email marketing is and also it's like with anything else, you're competing with all the other emails. So now it's going to be incumbent on you to market effectively through your email campaign. But that's another opportunity for marketing. And then again, trying to just give a sense of a cross section of different opportunities depending on your product. For the products that were the more on the creative art side, maybe local fairs and art shows, and for those that might be a little more of the any diversity of products, maybe trade shows, networking events. So again, try to find out where your marketplace is hanging out, but there are a number of different areas for opportunities to promote, and it's always good to gather the data on where you're getting feedback, because also ultimately that's good where you're going to want to commit more resources for future investment. I'm going to just grab a drink here. Let me know if there are any questions. Water, by the way. Okay. Again, when you talk to, if any of you have taken a marketing course, People that like to try to show that they know marketing like to talk about the 4 Ps again: product, price, promotion, and place. And place is, what's the most effective method to get the product into my customer's hands? And again, I like the term path to market more than place. How do I go about lowering the barriers to the customers obtaining it? Maybe it's what are my distribution channels? Let's say theoretically you've built a bigger business and you want to get it out to different regions of your state or your country, whatever it may be. Are you building an effective path for the customer to be able to buy your product? I mean, today, website sales, e-commerce, you can have your e-commerce business and be able to mail direct. And that may be one aspect of your path to market. But be thinking about, if it's a local sale and you're making something and you're selling it locally, the barriers would be pretty low, I believe. But ultimately, local access. But ultimately, it's thinking about, you can let the customer know all about your product. You can price it properly. If they have to struggle to put it into their hands, obviously that's going to be a problem. How do you get the product into your customer's hands? So we're moving along pretty quickly, which I guess is good. Self-assessment. So again, as I mentioned, it's really not assessment of you, but you're going to want to be your own strongest critic. And the best way for you to do that, well, not only critic, but also what are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? With those, what do you see as the opportunities? And what are the threats? You can, I think strengths and weaknesses are pretty self-explanatory. Opportunities ties to, given your strengths and weaknesses and what you know about the competition and what you know about your marketplace, what are the opportunities? So when you get through with this analysis and going through your 4 Ps and your competitors, and you spend time critically thinking about your strengths and weaknesses and asking your customer base or research base what they consider to be your strengths and weaknesses, you're going to identify opportunities, or you may very well, that you would not have been able to identify at the outset. The one that I think most people, companies, don't spend enough time on is competitive threats or threats, period. Sometimes I'll be in discussions with people and we'll talk about products that didn't learn the competitive threat soon enough. And, their product went obsolete because technology changed, or could be any number of changes. But I encourage you, as it relates to threats, to give significant thought to, based on your strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, based on everything you spent time on up till now in this discussion, what could be the threats to your product? And, again, it could come in a number of areas, but give that thought, because ultimately, whether this is just a side business, whether it's your whole income, whether it's something you're looking for it to become your primary or exclusive income, you're going to want to be thinking about the competitive forces that could ultimately threaten you. And so please ask questions if I can explain a little more. So again, give thought yourself, ask those whose opinion you value, ask those who you've included in some of your research, and ask those who are buying your product or maybe even choosing not to buy your product. You know, what strength, in what areas are we better than what else you can buy? You know, they may say you've got the lowest price in the market, and for them, that's a strength. Or it's an opportunity for you to consider it a strength, especially if you got the lowest cost, because obviously the whole goal is to try to drive a profit. Your strength may be you are capable of, or you have hired a firm that is marketing your offering dramatically more effectively than what else is in the marketplace. That can be a strength. Product first. Your product that you've built, for whatever reason, I mean, might be the art that you're developing, appeals to a certain segment of the market. That would be considered a strength. You know, that whatever aspect of either the product you're developing or who you're marketing it to, that if they identify that as a differentiating factor, that would be considered a strength. So I encourage you, when you get to the latter stages of this process, to give thought to strengths. Weaknesses, sometimes it's hard for us to, the more time we spend developing our business, the harder it is for us to see our weaknesses. So this is another one where, ask people to be candid with you. Tell them your goal is to walk away with weaknesses, not to walk away with no weaknesses. Needless to say, they need to be legitimate weaknesses. But, I think you can get a sense for understanding where you're weak. Not only do you want to work on enhancing your strengths, but at least as important is minimizing your weaknesses. So again, this can come from so many different areas. It can be, you've got a product you're marketing, but, your cost to make it is twice as much as others. And so for you to be competitive and at the price point they are, you're not making money. So your cost base is a distinct weakness. Maybe you haven't spent enough time on marketing, so the marketplace isn't coming to know what you have. Maybe you do not have the ability to effectively and quickly get a product to the customer. That's where the path to market comes in. So again, it's for some reason, when it comes to weaknesses, with all the time we've put into developing what we have, it can sometimes be the most difficult area to identify. So as always, please count on your marketplace and your research base to give you input on that. The opportunities, this is sort of the exciting part of it. You've done the work on the strengths and weaknesses. You've done the work on the research. You've considered all of the 4 Ps, everything else that went around it. And now, after having done all that, and I'm going to talk a minute about how you document it so that this review can be a concise and constructive process. The opportunity, so from this, you walk away and just as this listed, 3 or 4 bullets, you're going to walk away and say, okay, I take all this information, I throw it into a blender, and I open it up and see what it tells me. And after all your analysis, you're going to think and consider and identify opportunities that you might not have had earlier. You've just gathered too much information not to. So what are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? What are your opportunities? And again, in this one, be creative in your thought process. Remember, the marketplace has the answers. Talk to people. As you think about my business, well, in 5 years, I'd like to be here. 10 years, I'd like to be here. What are the threats that can most likely challenge my success? And some will be intuitive, and some will be, deeper in thought, but that'll be a very important process for you. If it's something you're enjoying doing and it's a side business, you're not spending a lot of time, you're also not going to give a lot of thought to threats. One, you're just enjoying doing it for the creative reasons. 2, again, you like making them. 3, you like being at the art fair or whatever. 4, you like making the motion, the motion picture graphics or whatever it is. And you're not investing a lot of time, effort, money, whatever, then threats are not as important. Threats come more into play the more you've invested in your opportunity. Mapping. What I like to do, and I tend to have this practice with a lot of things, is I like to map out my thoughts as it relates to each of the key components. So, and I like to whiteboard it. I like to write big, and I like to, and as I think about, product, and I've listened to my marketplace, and they've told me that, right now, what's very, what the marketplace seems to be demanding, requiring, requesting is this, and that's a bullet for you. And you think about the different components of your product or service or offering, and you list those bullets all towards the development of the product. And we all learn differently. I tend to be very much a visual person, and then some of you may be, and some of you won't be. But that's a method for me to, again, either get the whiteboard or get the poster papers or whatever it may be, and put all my bullets down as I'm developing each of the key components of the marketing strategy. As far as a marketing plan, I think one of the reasons marketing plans often aren't successful, or at least no one spends time with them, is they're too extensive. And what I would encourage you to do, I mean, one aspect you may say, well, I don't need a written plan, but hang with me. There are going to be points, even if it's a part-time offering, there are going to be points in what you're doing where you sort of lose the forest for the trees, you sort of lose your path forward. And being able to back up and just go to this 2 to 3 page document that addresses the critical points of each area of the marketing plan is a very, very helpful process tool. So, again, you may be thinking marketing plan, I hear you. That's not something I'm going to do, but give it some serious thought. And I'll give you a couple of examples of what the different bullets can be, but they're going to relate to everything we've talked about. So summarize each key aspect of your plan. One of them being the research results. You're going to walk away from it, and there are going to be certain aspects of it that you will have considered critical to your development of your business. What are the research results that were most important in your work with your focus groups or whatever it may be? What is it? Now, again, I'll show you a couple of examples of this so it's a little more meaningful. What was it about product? What drove you? Ultimately, maybe this is what I like to do, and that's what drove me to do it. That's may not be wrong, but I think we've learned that research may guide you on your product, and your research results some of that may actually be included in the couple of paragraphs you put together for products. So what was it that drove you to develop the product as you developed it? And pricing. You're looking for $39, $40 for this product that you're offering. Just put in there what drove that price point, because you're going to want to revisit it. You're going to ultimately over time, maybe you'll revisit the actual pricing for those items, or maybe you'll revisit it to price future items, and you're going to want some traceability back to how you made the pricing decisions. And it may not be just for the one or two individual products. You may be building a portfolio of products. So the greater the ability to go back and retrace your steps on it, the greater the value. Talk a little bit about the competition, mostly from the standpoint of what drove you to some of the decisions you made based on the competition. You don't have to go into you don't go into depth, period. But what was it about the competition that led you to add this feature to your product? Maybe it relates to your pricing. My price point was going to be here. I saw the marketplace was here, and it drove our pricing up. But how did the competition? I'm getting a little bit off actually where I wanted to be there. The competition is more just some comments about your key competitors. And there may be an aspect of it that's most important, but just some key aspects of your competition. And again, this is going to be a document that you're going to come back to once every 3 months or so and revisit. And it's a document that you will update. I mean, it's a marketing plan, so it's not something you're going to be changing out every day, but you're going to want to come back and revisit it. And you should set up some time points, whether it be 6 months, whether it be a year, where you adjust it based on the knowledge you've gained. And the moment you finish your marketing plan, it'll be obsolete, meaning you're going to learn information in the half hour from the time you finished it that's actually going to change some of this. But we can't be constantly changing our plans. We need to be going towards, it's like when you're flying to an airport and someone says no, it's you go over here and you're changing destinations. You need to, you need to stay on your plan. And so again, set up your time periods for review, but you will often go back and visit it and consider it, and it'll be that document that really guides you. And with it being just a 2 or 3 page document, you're not going to hesitate to go back to it. If it was a 5, 10, whatever it may be, you wouldn't. First, you wouldn't do it, and second, you wouldn't go back to it. What are the key aspects of promotion? Again, when you come back and visit this in 6 or 12 months or whatever it will be, you can be sure that your strategy on promotion will be altered. You've learned a lot, and that's the purpose of updating a business plan or a marketing plan. Same with the path to market. What have you learned? Or excuse me, what did you decide, and what drove you deciding your path to market? And this, again, this is really that's sort of an executive summary. Now, the executive summary most often is at the front of the marketing plan, where you're encapsulating all the key components into an executive summary. But this document is brief enough. The executive summaries are usually when you have a 10 page, 15 page, whatever, and you want somebody to be able to go to 1 page and see what the summary of it is. Your document's going to be brief enough that it's really not as critical. But I do encourage you to use it as a working document. You've spent the time to do it. It's deep in information because you've systematically built it and you've considered each of the components. So here's an example of, and this is certainly random, but, let's say it's my business, and we've made the decision that the first product we're going to bring to market is item B. We viewed it as having the highest potential customer demand and the highest probability of quick market penetration. So when you go back and you think about, well, why did we offer that product first? Let's say theoretically we had 5 different products. What was it that drove us to take this one to the marketplace before the others? Further, paragraph 2, given its low cost and the high potential margin, given its low cost and higher potential margin than some of our other products, it gives us the highest likelihood of profit generation, quicker profit generation, which then we can put back into additional products. So, again, these are just bullet points for you to be able to go back and, recall why you did what you did. And then, again, this is yours to create. Maybe then you talk about what you're projecting to be your next offering. Item C will be offered next, estimated 6 to 9 month time frame, and item A is estimated to release in 15 to 18 months. Again, just something that I develop, but I encourage you to do something similar for each of the bullets and include that in your 2 to 3 page document. It'll become your product or company Bible as it relates to marketing your products. Just as another example, your pricing plan. Again, we determined that item B is our first product release. The research told us that the proper price point is $25 to $30. We're wanting to establish market penetration early, especially on this first product. And given that, we'll price it at the lower end of the range to try to gain some market penetration. Depending on the market response, over time, we may ultimately, increase the price for future production. Often companies' products, to gain market share, to gain market awareness, will come in at low price points and ultimately increase over time. Just depends on what your strategy is. And items C and A, those were the next two offerings. Pricing will be determined after review of how item B does in sales. At the outset, the research told us 35 to 40, and then 45 to 50 with items C and A. But again, we're going to monitor that and make some determinations after we see the success of item B. So again, these are the bullet points I put together to assist me when I'm reviewing it, and then when I'm looking to update it. That phase 2 will be completely different. I mean, you've got 6 or months or a year of time behind you, and you'll be updating the plan accordingly. So you'd be putting in, a paragraph or two for each of those bullet points, and building your working document of a marketing plan. So this is the fundamentals of marketing success, and sort of approaching it from two different standpoints. On the left, starting at the top, whatever it is, as it says, decide what to measure. Maybe that's deciding what questions to ask. Ultimately, the degree that you can put a numerical component to it, and you can be creative in how you do that, to allow you to measure the feedback you get, will help you in making the decisions that you make. Whether it be, in your surveys, least popular to most popular, or least to whatever it is to most, try to put a measurable aspect to the data, because that's going to allow you to analyze and make decisions. Even without the measurables, you're going to learn, and you're going to learn important information. But again, to the degree that you can quantify it, and let me know if that makes sense or doesn't make sense, that's going to help you. So decide what to measure, collect the data, and that will come from your various aspects of research. Then you're going to analyze the data to the degree that you've quantified it. That's going to help you in the analysis process. But even if it's not as quantifiable, it'll still be valuable. You're then going to report the results. Report meaning document your results, and then take action. So that circle there was sort of represented the entire process of each one of the areas that we spent time on. You can walk through that process, and ultimately you'll combine all of it into a similar decision-making process. The 7 P's of marketing mix, and we've spent time on most of these. Price is critical. I hope you've gained some sense of the sensitivity in building price, the opportunity in building price, in that sometimes your costs may be low, but you learn that in this particular market or these types of products, the higher you price it, you're creating a perception that ultimately drives your margins up dramatically. So the 7 P's of marketing: price, promotion, where are my customers hanging out? And, what are they reading? What are they buying? What are they, try to get a sense from that, from the different research tools that we talked about. And that's going to lead you to how you're making them aware of your offering. I didn't actually see this physical evidence. My mind automatically goes to a more analysis of a tangible product, but probably not as critical to what we're doing here. The people aspect of it, critical to every business. First and foremost, always product first. So again, what you're offering is, you can't succeed without a high quality product, whether it be the store you're opening and all the aspects of how you're running it, the people involved, the products involved, product's got to be sound first and foremost. I could go to an art fair and do a nice job of promoting my products. Problem would be, my product wouldn't be promotable. Meaning I'm not creative and I wouldn't be successful. So again, you can be really good at other areas, but product is first, product is most important. And if you've got the right product, you can overcome weakness in a lot of other areas. Obviously, the greatest combination is, being healthy or strong across all of them. Process is a good word. Everything we're doing within each of these areas of the business, it all ties to process, product versus process. And when I say product, end result. So to arrive at a proper end result in anything, you need to have an effective process to get there. And so your processes, whether it be research, whether it be any aspects that we talked about, your process is critical, and your process will lead you to an effective result. And place again. It's going to depend on your business as to how much of a challenge or barrier this is, but making it easier for the customer to be able to obtain your product, because you can be effective in all the other areas. But if it's manufactured in Costa Rica and it's difficult to get, there are too many other easy options for our marketplace. And so it's incumbent on us to make the product easily available to the marketplace. So keys to marketing, keys to success: follow your plan. You've built a plan, follow it, execute it, and have faith in it. You're going to come back and review it. You're not going to be, it's a dynamic document, and it's going to be ever changing, because the marketplace is ever changing. So establish your plan. It may not feel like the right thing to do to you. It may feel like a lot of work, but even if it's a relatively small side business, I think you'll take a lot of pride in going through each of these steps and building your plan. It's going to be brief. It's going to be focused. Execute it, evaluate and reevaluate it. So, you can be thinking about it within the month, within the 2 months, the 3 months, whatever it may be, but don't be constantly changing it. Otherwise, it's a dynamic plan, and the roots aren't deep. You've built it. You spent the time. You did the work to build a plan to the best of your market knowledge at that time, and use that. And then again, I'd recommend come back in 6 months or 12 months and adjust. Needless to say, if you're learning things along the way that are counter to what you developed in a strategy, of course, we're not going to wait 6 months to 12 months to make our changes. But going back and be wholesale changing everything, maybe I was wrong the first time, shouldn't have done that, etc. I think you're going to find that the whole process is counterproductive. So if it's something that's hammering you right over the head that, okay, I didn't realize our price was 3 times the competition. Obviously, we're not going to wait to change that. But the plan itself, it's sort of like having a retirement account, and every day you're going in and moving the money somewhere else because the market did something that day. Give it a chance to work. Adjust as necessary and repeat. So, you're going to be that's going to be a full cycle. Follow your plan, execute it, evaluate it, adjust, and then go back to the beginning again. And you're going to do that for each of the products that you develop. So I did some work on finding, these are different, different, albeit the same. They're different creative articles on some aspect of what we're talking about. But I found them all to be very good and very thought-provoking. So you can just, key into those, and I think you'll find it to be helpful. And brings us back to dough. So as I mentioned at the beginning, for each of you individually, I am available now or at another time to spend some time talking about your individual business. You can email me to set up a time to do that if you'd prefer to do it, one-on-one. And I'm available right now if there are any questions. So please let me know your thoughts.
Is there any way you could email the PowerPoint to us?
Oh yeah, let me see if I have. Great question. Yeah, I've got your emails here, and I took your names down, but can you see this? You can't. Hold on a second. Okay, does everyone see their name on there somewhere? And obviously we have a small percentage of those that signed up, which is always the case. But does anyone not see their name? So I've taken your names down, and I'll email a copy of the presentation to you. And also take a look to make sure that your email address is correct.
The presentation certainly had a lot of good insight that, things that it's good to see as far as to confirm some ideas that you have thinking, I have my existing business and then a new business that it's going to be more of a pastime type of thing, but I do want to approach it. And this is going to be an interesting fork in the, like two forks going in two different directions, but they're each going to have kind of, I'll be able to lean on this a little bit.
Great.
Thank you.
Thanks for that feedback. Are there any questions tonight that I can answer? Or again, I'm available via send me an email. We can spend a little bit of time on your individual situation.
I do have a question about pricing, specifically about raising prices. I just wonder how one should go about that, if it's something that should be like announced, or if you should just, I don't know, like.
That's a great question. You know, it's a really interesting question. And ultimately, in what I do and what I've done, it's always a discussion around what are the pros, what are the cons of announcing it. You know, what are we going to gain by doing it? What obstacles are we going to put in place by doing it? And do the risks outweigh the advantages? So, I mean, if you had a specific situation, I could comment. Otherwise, I think it's going to be a that analysis, you know, pros versus cons, risks versus rewards. And after you've gone through that thought process, you're going to see that one outbalances the other.
Yeah, I suppose my biggest concern is like my returning customers. If I had in the past offered them like a custom portrait and offered them a certain price, and then they came back, let's say a couple years later, and I have raised my prices since then because I plan on raising my prices as I have more experience. So I don't know if that would like potentially cause me to lose that returning customer.
Yeah. So, yeah, great question. So in that situation, you have an agreement with your customer. You have a product. You've agreed at a price point. You've made the sale. The sale is concluded. So when they come back at another period and you're building your business and you're building your pricing, you should expect, it doesn't mean it's always going to happen, that the marketplace is going to approach it as we're now opening up a new negotiation. And, you know, obviously it's not a negotiation, but, you know, you closed the sale, you met your obligation, you know, exchanged currency. And then if they came back the next day and the price was higher, I mean, you might consider something the next day that, well, it was yesterday, I'll hold it. But, you know, really a week later, a month later, you know, that's an entirely different negotiation. And you shouldn't hesitate one bit to be increasing your pricing. You know, again, there may be some sensitivities here I'm not, you know, understanding or appreciating. But generally, in what you do, you're not locked into, unless you have an agreement with a certain customer. You know, I'll hold your price for a year if you buy, you know, 20 pieces from me. But unless there's some kind of agreement in place, that's the business person's prerogative to price as they, you know, as they choose.
That makes perfect sense. Thank you.
Okay, good. You're welcome.
I suffered with that like quite a bit when I first got going doing what I was doing, because when you first get out there, you're not necessarily able to charge what, you know, somebody with experience is. And there are clients out there willing to take a risk on you in order to, you know, work with you. And then over time, naturally, your rates go up. So I liken it to like leaves on the tree, and some fall off and the new ones grow back, you know, and they're the ones that understand the value of what they're getting, and the ones
Right.
that don't aren't necessarily the clients or the customers that you want to be engaging with, you know. And it took a little while of losing things before things started growing back, you know?
Yeah, well said. Also, keep in mind that the magic of the price points, that, you know, when they come back a period later and you've increased your price 30%, you know, it's saying something about you, your business, your, you know, why are your prices higher? People are paying it. And, you know, so, you know, it speaks to, don't, we have a tendency to be shy or sheepish about that, but try to overcome it, because really it speaks, as you're able to raise prices, to the success of your offering and also your own success.
I like that. And I like the tree analogy, John. I'm definitely starting to learn that, you know, not everybody is my ideal customer. And I just have to focus on the people that do see the value in my work. And I do sometimes like battle between wanting to like justify raising my prices and then just like feeling like I don't owe anybody an explanation and just doing it. So, but this has been super helpful.
Yeah, that's a really interesting subject. The recognizing that everyone isn't your customer is really, really important. Needless to say, the economics need to work. We need enough people to be our customers at certain price points, but that's obvious. You know, there's also the math of, you know, if I can sell 10 at X, while I may lose a sale, if I'm getting it at this number and I may be turning some customers away, a lot of good things are happening. You're creating that perception of how good your product is, how valuable you are, but also you're increasing your profits while having raised the price. Any other questions or comments? Please, again, please don't hesitate to drop me an email. We can spend a little more time together on it. Otherwise, if I can help you with anything specific, I'd be happy to chat about it. And let me see. And I think that's it. I really enjoyed our discussion. And let me know if I can do anything for you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Have a good night.
You too.
Thank
Good night,
you.
everyone.